Well, hello and welcome to our Empowered Development webinar powered by We Are Power and Royal London, or as I like to call them, the Royal London Massive, who I am joined by today here in the fantastic studio. And we really want to talk today about how each of us can take control of our personal development and our professional growth. My name is Simone Roche and I am going to be your host to guide us through today's session. And we're going to be talking about what empowered development is, beyond the frameworks, beyond the buzzwords, and really bringing it to life, because we always want people to go away. There's practical tips to kind of crack on and do stuff. So without further ado, and before we get into our discussion, and please do drop your conversation and your questions into the chat, because we want you to get involved as well. But I'm going to ask our stellar panel, I always love that word, stellar, like you're all stars,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
To just briefly, what's your name and where do you come from?
So I'm Sophie Hadfield. I'm Head of Colleague IT Experience at Royal London Group.
Wow, amazing.
Great. Stuart Robertson, and I'm Chief Information Officer at Royal London.
I'm Siobhan Ogunmola and I'm a third-year degree apprentice in Royal London.
Amazing. Congratulations. And how is that for you? How are they treating you?
Amazing.
Yeah. Look at that smile. Look at that smile.
Pleased to hear it.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the big question. When we talk about empowered development, what does it actually look like beyond those buzzwords? Let's start with you, Sophie.
To me, empowered development means understanding your own career motivations, understanding what makes you tick, what your drivers are, and then having the time and the capacity and the support to go off and define specific development actions that you can then take to help you feel empowered in your development.
Like your own super plan, right?
Yes, exactly.
Stuart, what's it to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd agree a lot with what Sophie said. For me, it's about understanding the sort of why. And I think it's about understanding your strengths and where your development areas are and taking control of that and putting that super plan in place to
We've now adopted that, haven't we? The super plan. That's what you're all going to get at the end of today, super plan. What's your super plan? Our lovely Siobhan.
I think for me, it's about having the confidence to take your development, especially in your career, into your own hands. And, you know, usually you hear things like growth mindset or set like SMART goals, but it's like just the little things that you do to get towards your development.
And sometimes it doesn't have to be those bold things, right? Sometimes it's the small things that can add up. And we're in, you know, things can move at pace, can't they? And change is constant, isn't it, Stuart? So how can we build that resilience up to help us with that super plan?
Yeah, I think I'll borrow a term that our CEO used last year, but
we'll love that. Oh, let's be good at appraisal time, Stuart.
Well, I hope so, right? But I mean, to be fair, he borrowed it from Justin Trudeau, who made the comment about the pace at which we live it in the world and the fact that the world will never move more slowly again. And I think when I look back at my own career over the last 30 years, you know, I mean, the cloud was something that ruined a barbecue at the weekend, whereas now it's you know, something that really runs the world in that much more different way. You know, developing code was very much about knowing what you were going to write next and building that line by line, whereas you've now got AI tools that make that process a lot easier. So we do live in a world with incredible pace, and I think we all just have to learn to constantly adapt and take that in our step a little. I think looking back on the positives is something that I think is really important to building resilience. And I think when things do go wrong, it's really important that you take the opportunity to reflect on those. And I think certainly in my own development, I've probably learned more from the things that didn't go well than the things that did.
And I think it's about passing that on as well, isn't it? Passing on to your peers, passing on to someone at the start of their career. What advice would you give to Siobhan, someone who's maybe at the start of their career who thinks, well, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. Is it too early?
So, I mean, Siobhan mentioned the confidence word there, and I think that's so important, right? I think having that confidence and that belief in yourself that when things do go wrong, you learn from those and you adapt and you sort of learn from those round about you as well and how their coping mechanisms are. I think openness and transparency are really important. I mean, I'm very open with my team about some of my challenges that I've had. And I mean, certainly over the last couple of years, I've really struggled with anxiety, and talking about that and making that really real for people, that, you know, people are not superhuman. People go through challenges and deal with challenges all the time, has really encouraged that transparency within the team.
And I think that vulnerability in leadership is part of your own development plan, isn't it? It's you be you. So maybe the super plan is does that sound too much and too, sort of aspirational, or actually it's the you plan?
Yeah.
I'm changing this as I go along. I'm just rebranding. What do you think about that? That really being yourself, isn't it? You can't have two plans the same.
I think being yourself is important, but I think Stuart used the word vulnerability. I think not feeling like you have to know everything is really important, and leaning on people around you and trust. Well, we one of our values is trustworthy, and if you trust the people in your team to be experts and you can tap into their experience, you don't have to know everything, and it's okay to not have all the answers all the time.
And what would you say, Siobhan? So you are completely that relatable role model, haven't you? You've been in the organisation 3 years. There'll be apprentices and graduates and new entrants coming into the organisation, which is rapidly growing and doing amazing things out at that Macclesfield. Glorious HQ, by the way, glorious. But what would you say to them? Because they might think, it's too early for me to have my U plan.
I think a lot of the time people think like they're not ready to do stuff. But for me, I believe like saying you're not ready to do something is just like an excuse we might make up to make ourselves kind of feel better. Because how do you determine like when you're ready? So I'd say like there's no such thing as being ready to do something. You should just go do it first, and then the readiness kind of comes next.
And what have you learnt so far along your own empowerment plan?
I think something that's really big for me is just saying yes to new opportunities, even if I'm really scared. I just like to say yes anyways and figure it out, because you never know where you might end up. So, yeah.
And how do you get through the scared bit? Because sometimes it's like being on the edge thinking, shall I, shan't I, can I speak up? Can I say yes to do that? Is there enough time? The things sometimes be against us, but how do you get rid of those barriers to remove that fear?
I say the more I do it, the less scared I am. But like talking to people or just telling myself, reassuring myself that, it's fine. It doesn't, like, nobody really cares that much, should I say? So yeah, that's something that really helps.
And shoot, you said you're 30 years in the business. I straight away, Sophie, said, surely not. Surely not, right? What advice would you give to your younger Stuart? Did you have a plan?
No, to be honest, I never really had a U plan, and I'm not sure that I still do in terms of really knowing what I want to do when I grow up. So it's a key point to highlight that, I'm still in my youth. But I think that I totally support what Siobhan just said there. I think that's something I've always adopted as well, is just say yes to new opportunities. You're never going to be ready for lots of the things that come along. The world was not ready for lots of the things that are coming along. But we just adapt and we learn, and the sort of responsiveness that you build through doing that on a regular basis is probably what builds that resilience that we talked about earlier.
And what did you learn? You talked about sort of some of those, not so much failures, just maybe haven't come out as expected. Is there any that you might be able to officially share with us, or unofficially, or ambiguity? No, what's the word? Ambiguously share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've done a lot of big program delivery in my career, and it's not always gone fully to plan. So I think on many of those programs, when things haven't gone well or as expected, it's about how you've responded and learned from that. I think we seldom make the same mistakes twice, because, as long as you take that time to reflect and learn, then you probably build that into your future approach. So I think it's that time that I now take to reflect when things do go wrong that I've really learned from that, whether that's in my personal life or in my work life. And things have gone wrong in both, right? So,
well, there's no one straight path, is there, for sure?
Nope.
And I think there's a responsibility with leadership. I think it's safe to say that everyone in this room will be really passionate about paying it forward, giving back, and spotting unnurtured talent, irrespective of how far you are in your career venture. But what can leaders do more of to not just spot that talent, but to really kind of harness and support and give the opportunities, the say yes opportunities? What can we be doing more of? Because sometimes you think, time is our big enemy, isn't it? We haven't got time to do it. But what can leaders do more of?
I think ask open questions of people in your team. Sometimes it's tempting to pick people for different tasks because you know their strengths. But I think if sometimes you give people the opportunity to volunteer for things, you get surprises sometimes, and somebody volunteers and you think, I wouldn't have thought you'd like to do this thing. And actually they're sometimes the best person for that job. And it's good for their experience. It's good for their growth. So I think asking people open questions about their own development and giving them time to talk about their development away from a work conversation. So one of the things I do with my team is have a quarterly catch up with them just about career and development. And it means that it doesn't bleed into a how's that thing coming and when's that going to be ready and all that kind of chat. It is just about them and their career and what they're interested in.
I think that's a real top tip, isn't it? It's the separation. It's the you person taking it away from the role, because ultimately we work a long time, whether we're remote working or we're on the road or whatever it may be. We have to give a lot of energy and passion to it. So it's really important to bring out the entrepreneurship and the side hustle and that's what curiosity. That's being curious as a leader, isn't it?
I think feeling like you have the time to go and invest in your own development is really important as well.
100%. And how do you retain that self-belief? We talked about confidence at the start, because sometimes you think, right, I'm going to say yes and I'm going to volunteer and put myself forward. But how do you maintain that when you've got a busy day job as well to do and think, gosh, am I always the one that volunteers? Is it okay for me to still say yes?
I think something that helps a lot is like the people I work with at Royal London, for example, my managers or just senior colleagues, they're really helpful. So I could tell them, listen, I really want to do this and I need more time to focus on this rather than the work I'm doing in my team, for example. I think that really helps me, and it shows that, they actually care that I want to do other things aside from my day job to maybe develop myself in other areas of my life.
And what is the highlight of those yeses? And equally, what's one of the yeses that you've maybe said yes to and thought, never again, I'm never skydiving again?
I think one of my favorite yeses would be like planning a social for the apprentices. I just asked like, I'd love to do this and I think it would be a great thing to bring us all together. And it was a yes. And it was like, yeah, you can do whatever. Just let us know and we'll get the budget sorted. And I absolutely loved that.
That's a great conversation. I love that.
And that was really good. And one that I'd never do again. I don't know if there's one I'd never do again.
Skydiving. Just say that. That's the easy option.
Yeah.
We'll send Stuart on. And also creating those opportunities are really key. What is the craziest yes that you've said yes to potentially, Stuart?
Oh, that's a great question. In terms of my career, the craziest yes, probably going to Canada, to be honest, because that involved taking my whole family over there.
How did that conversation go?
Probably better than I expected, to be honest. I mean, it was a really different opportunity. The business was based in Montreal, which is French speaking. None of us spoke French at that time, so we had a lot of development ahead of us moving to Montreal. But that was probably the craziest yes. And when I look back, it's probably the one that I'm most grateful that I said yes to.
And that's the thing that then it falls over into your personal life as well, because the experience that your family will have had during that adventure as well, to then bring back in, your kids, that builds into their experience and their memorability, doesn't it, for when they're going for roles and, courses, etc.
100%. I mean, my daughter, who was due to start primary school, then ended up starting it in a French-speaking primary school in Montreal, and that was incredibly different. And I think she looks back on that as a real resilience-building moment, because she made friends, she learned the language, she adapted to the culture. All those things that, she probably would doubt later in life that she could do, she can always look back on.
I mean, that is an ultimate transferable skill, isn't it? Does she still parler français?
No, she doesn't, unfortunately. In fact, neither of my children really speak in French. My son prefers German, which I find quite interesting. But
like you say, it's the culture. It's the culture that you go in that you can then take back into your next role or next opportunity, isn't it? What would you say is your sort of key transferable skills that you've brought and taken and been on your plan or not on your plan?
Transferable skills. I think having a genuine interest in people and stakeholder management. Stuart and I were talking about stakeholder management earlier, and I think having a real understanding of who your internal customers are, and in every role I've ever done, that's been so important, and responding to their requirements and understanding them enough to then have a conversation with them that's meaningful to them in some way is a really key one.
And going through your apprenticeship, you are learning everything, can't you? You are literally every day expanding your knowledge about not just the business, but about stakeholders, people's customers, everything that comes in. What do you think are the skills that you're learning right now that you think actually that's where I want to transfer into another role within the organisation, or I didn't think of myself on that path, but now I feel like I could really do that. Stuart's job, obviously.
I think a big one I'm really trying to develop right now is curiosity. And a lot of the times when I speak to people and I ask them, what transferable skills do you think are the best to have? A lot of them say like, stay curious, and I think it's just asking those questions like, why do we do things a certain way? Why does this process exist? I think because, when you ask people questions, they're actually more willing to answer and tell you a lot than you'd think they are. And it just really helps. And then that's how you build more knowledge and things.
And for you two as leaders as well, that's really important, isn't it? That curiosity and challenging with a good C, right? I think it's important to have those voices heard, because that can challenge your thinking and your planning as well, can't it, within the organisation?
Absolutely, and it can change direction in such a good way as well.
It's like reverse mentoring in practice,
Yes.
isn't it?
Exactly. And I think the reverse mentoring element is really important. I think you have to really empower people to make decisions and choices. You can support them maybe around understanding why we're doing things, but let them decide on the how and influence and shape that.
And if you looked in your tool bag now from your extensive experience career, Stuart, what do you think are the key transferable skills that you've found in there that you go, gosh, I didn't expect that one, but that's the one that's held me up and developed me?
Yeah, I think in my early career, I really focused on getting things done and driving forward without really thinking as much about why we were doing things. So I think that's really one. Thinking about that why is really important. I think the curiosity point, empathy, these skills that are not necessarily the ones that you write front and centre of your CV are probably the most important ones that you can take with you in every role.
Absolutely. And we've talked about vulnerability, we've talked about empathy as well. And I think, do you think it's often easier to help support someone else's career rather than sometimes focus on your own? We've talked about that empowering and nurturing and really spotting the talent there and really wanting to help. But we shift the lens now onto ourselves. That could be harder, right?
Yes, because I think sometimes you can feel like you're being selfish if you take time away to do your own development activities. And I always think, you wouldn't cancel a holiday, but you will cancel your own development time sometimes because of a meeting or because you're busy or you've got a piece of work to do. But it is really important to protect that time and make sure that you do it. And you mentioned earlier about investment, and it is that investment in the future, not just for yourself, but for everybody else as well. So if you go off and develop yourself or spend time learning something, you can come back and share that with other people as well.
It is, and it can be that. It can just be there, always that barrier, can't it? Time and busy can be the worst four-letter words in the world at times, can't they? But how can we dismantle them to make sure that we are got to hold our own mirror up, haven't we, and go, you know what, I don't think I've got enough time to this, but I've got to make time because it will make me a better leader, it'll make me a better manager, it'll make me a better client lead, whatever it is we may be. But how do you keep that focus? Or it's not easy, right?
Well, I think when you're trying to create a culture of continuous learning across the organisation, you have to, as a leader, role model that for your team and talk about what you're doing to develop. And, when you're doing some development activities, highlight that to the team to remind them that, everyone needs to do this. Everyone gets better every day, right? That's what we're all here for, is to get better, to help those around us get better, to help the organisation get better.
And I feel like this is no problem for you, Siobhan. I feel like you are not just got a kit bag now, but you're a sponge gathering all this knowledge. How are you going to keep doing that? Because it's really important. Because look what you've done for your apprentices coming up behind you. You made that happen by developing that skill and developing that. You'll have learned skills along the way, pulling that together. Definitely. But it was like herding sheep.
It definitely was. I'd say like what Stuart said about letting people know that you're developing yourself as well. I think that, especially as an apprentice, I think that's really good because it kind of shows, everyone still needs to develop themselves. Everyone is still learning. And for me, especially since I'm usually like the youngest or the least experienced, it shows I still have a long way to go, but it's doable.
But as you get more experience, you won't be the youngest. And you then have the opportunity to then encourage those that are you're blazing a trail, aren't you, for those coming behind you? right?
Yep.
It's that sense of responsibility. Do you identify that you are a role model?
Sometimes, yes, definitely for the younger apprentices or the newer apprentices coming in, and I try to always give advice or tips I've learned to help them avoid making the same mistakes I might have made. And if I can do that in any way, I'm always happy to do it.
And what about you? Do you both identify as being role models?
Probably not as much as I should, to be honest. I think, people are obviously looking at how I approach situations, and that's certainly how I've learned through my career, is working with some other leaders about how they approach things, learning how they deal with it, and perhaps even if you only learn how not to deal with it from watching their behaviour. So it's something that I think we need to be incredibly conscious of all the time.
And is there something that through your career, Sophie, that you've gone, that's what I've relied on? It's either to help me keep that focus on my development. Is it through mentorship? Is it through reading? Is it through curiosity? Is it through courses? What's been the thing that's helped you? Because it doesn't have to be the same for everyone, right?
I think I've always tried a combination, but I've always had unofficial mentors. So it's not that I necessarily ask people formally to be a mentor, but I identify people who I think they've got a thing that I'm not very good at, or I want to get better at, or I want to learn. And therefore I want to meet them regularly and find out how they approach things, or how do they think about certain things. That's done me really well with things like, I don't think in the past my instinct was to be analytical about things, but actually having had analytical leaders, I see the value of that. And now I think really hard about how to bring data and be data-led in decision-making.
100%, it's key, isn't it? And I think but sometimes it could be too much, can't it? So it's trying to identify what will help me make the right decision. These are your day jobs, right, as well. But how can you also encourage? It's important for you to, I suppose, role model that behaviour of, I'm taking and getting this sort of development for me, because I want you to. It's that ripple effect, isn't it? I think that you need to pass on. Do you find that, is that easy by the nature that you do it in the first place?
Yes, and I think telling people, as the other two have said, about the fact that you are developing something or you're trying something new. I'll give you an example. So yesterday, I'd been on a course recently where I had these career motivation cards and 3 sets of cards that I had as a takeaway. And I asked one of my team if I could try them with him and could he be my guinea pig? And he was really happy to do it. And he did a great job. And he said, I'm not sure I'm the right person for this because I'm happy in my role. And I said, no, it's not about that. It's about me trying to understand your career motivations and therefore give you more work that's interesting to you. So I was being open with him that this was a new thing for me. I was trying it for the first time, and then he was really open-minded to then being a part of it, and it works well. And what do they say on those cards? Just give us an example, because I think simple things like that and trialing it and experimenting with your team, it's an openness to not just do what you've always done. So what did they say? I'm fascinated. I want some. I should have brought them. So one of them is 12 motivations, and one of them might be you like delivery, or you want to have fun at work, or you want to be a subject matter expert, for example. So the first task is to pick 2 cards that you most identify with out of the motivations. And for me, this is really good because that with him, I thought, wow, I would have guessed one of his, but he picked a different one that I wouldn't have picked for him. So it gives you more insight into what an individual thinks about themselves rather than what you think about them.
Oh, and that's amazing, because that could work in many different situations. It could work apprentice to apprentice. It could work apprentice to chief exec. There's a whole other event here. Katie, who's from Royal London here, has created and brought all you guys together here. I think there's a whole thing there, isn't there? But trying different things like that is brilliant. It's
a great idea, isn't it? Because it gives people context to put in front of them to say, yeah. Because people sometimes, when you give them the opportunity to find the words, they find it difficult to say what motivates them. So giving them a couple of drivers to put in front of them, I think would be really helpful.
And I think that it won't work for everyone, but actually sometimes it can open people up and they bring a side of themselves that you might have only seen the delivery side, or next time, Sophie, we need those. Or next time I'm at Royal London, we'll get those cards out. But how do you get sort of I think sometimes it's always about the foundations. I think data is really key actually in telling a story about why it's important to do this. But how do you get the basics right to give people the freedom to try new things like career cards?
Getting the basics right is super important. Sophie and I were chatting outside about service management and how important that is. We're talking about the IT experience for colleagues and the visible part of the iceberg that they see. And for many people, that is the basics. So, their end user experience as a colleague is how they define whether or not IT is doing a good job or not. So I think at a personal level, getting those basics right creates the space to try new things. So doing the fundamentals, I think, will give you that space to try new things with your team, try new things with yourself, think about the approaches you're taking, what didn't work well, how you can maybe adapt that next time round. But in order to be able to have that space and time to adapt, getting the basics right puts that foundation in place.
And what is the thing for you, Siobhan, that has really enabled you to keep saying yes?
I think it kind of stems from the fact that I didn't always fully know what exactly I wanted to do. So for me, it was more like say yes to everything and anything you can.
Stuart's still working it out now, by the way.
Absolutely.
So saying yes to anything and seeing where it leads, and hopefully I might end up somewhere I really like. And I think that's what I keep in the back of my mind, like this might be a really good opportunity and I might lead to somewhere really good. So yeah.
And are there any sort of key, you talked about the career cards, which obviously you can tell now I'm fascinated by, but are there any sort of key mantras that you live by? We've talked about the say yes and work it out later, but any sort of quotations or mantras that you go, that's my Sophie, that's my T-shirt tote bag?
It's actually something Siobhan mentioned before, but having a growth mindset and almost not putting pressure on yourself to do everything right, but as long as you reflect on everything and every experience that you've had and think, what went well, what could I have done better, what could I do differently next time, it means that everything that you do is building towards something else in the future. And I think it just means all of your experiences are positive ones, whether they were difficult or a struggle at the time, there's still something positive to be taken from them.
What about yourself? Do you have a T-shirt? Like, I'm We Are Power, obviously. But I must admit, I've always lived by the say yes and work it out later kind of mantra, which has probably got me into trouble at times. But, but it has worked, because sometimes you never know. You never know where that conversation will lead. Yeah. You never know where that relationship, you never know where that question, that ask will lead you.
Yeah, I think that Sophie sort of hit the nail on the head there. It's being open-minded, believing in yourself in terms of the transferable skills that you have, recognising that nobody has all the answers, but believe in yourself to work it out and leverage those around about you. So collaboration with your colleagues and your team, with leaders that you trust, with colleagues that you trust around what can I leverage from them, what could I get out of this opportunity? And look at everything as opportunity, right? Even if it's a real challenge.
And if you've ever been to any of our events, we live by our 3x3x3 rule, which is speak to 3 people at that event or that connection that you have never met. And particularly if it's internal, you work for a big organisation. So 3 people that you've not met, make a conversation with. What are 3 actions you're going to take when you leave that event? And then the 3 people you're going to tell about it. Because sometimes you go back into the day job and then don't tell them. And it's not telling them in a braggy way. It's telling them in but I didn't realise I could. I never thought to ask. By you being visible around that can empower yourself to say, yeah, I was part of that and I really enjoyed it and I learned this, but also empowers others as well. So we'd love to know, any of you watching, whether you're watching live or on catch up, any of your top tips as well out there, or any questions that you will ask, please do pop them in the chat. Just like that. And then we will do our best to get back to you. Now, you all sit in the technology function, right? So what part does AI, generative AI, whatever version of AI that we don't even know about yet, what part has that got to play in our own empowered development?
Well, I've already used AI. I'm interested to see what these guys say, but I've used AI in things like my personal statement for this, ironically. So I fed my CV into Copilot, which is our internal AI tool, and said, write a paragraph based on my CV of who I am and what I do. And it came up with a really succinct paragraph. I made a couple of tweaks, but in terms of development and CV, any kind of personal statements you have to do, I think it can be really good for that, because sometimes it's, especially as English people, we find it so awkward to write about ourselves and talk about ourselves. But actually, it takes that step out and you think, okay, yeah, that's true, or I'll just change that thing. Well,
it's interesting. We have our Northern Power Women Awards, which you've been part of, and we've got many nominees from Royal London in there. But what's interesting is 1,800 nominations, record-breaking, by the way. But what we see is we're obviously seeing more and more AI come into it. And I've no problem with that, because I think the key is, like you say, it's the tweaks.
Yes.
You've got to empower AI, haven't you, as well? So we have had some through that just go, this cannot be classified as correct because ChatGPT gets it wrong. And I'm like, please cut and paste it off. But anyway, that's how, but there is that, you can use it for good, right? Can't you? I think there can be so much different spin around AI, but I think there is about that nurturing AI as well for good, which is exactly what you've done.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
So in terms of AI and in the context of development, I use it regularly. A bit like Sophie, I may have used it in my personal statement for this. I certainly use it day to day in terms of tasks that I think could be simplified with AI. I think in terms of how the organisation wants to use AI, it's about making the experience for our colleagues better and making the experience for our customers better. I think there's so much opportunity to do that. I do live in the most exciting times, you know. I mean, when I look back on my early career, I mean, pre-Google, lots of the tools that we just take for granted now.
Pre a phone that was a computer, right?
100%. I mean, putting a supercomputer in your pocket was inconceivable back then. So to now have all that power in front of you, it's about how we learn to harness that to make ourselves better, to make the lives of colleagues better, and to make the lives of customers better.
So AI has got a part to play. Does it involve and go into your personal life as well as your work life? How do you use it, Siobhan?
I use it for loads of things. I use it at work. Sometimes when I'm writing code, you know, my manager even says, how about you feed your code into AI and tell it what you can do, ask it what you can do better. Or I use it even in university, they encourage us to use it for our assignments. In my personal life, sometimes I ask it about my finances and savings. And I think it's just such a great tool. I remember someone once saying, like, AI is kind of like a calculator. You know, you kind of have to know the numbers you're putting in to get what you want out of it. And that is so important.
Oh, that's good. That's a good top
Very
tip.
good.
Very good top tip. So what do you think is the recipe, Sophie, for creating that great team, that great empowered team where people feel as though they can?
I think letting people go off and develop and then bring new skills and knowledge back, trusting people in the team. So giving people the confidence and empowerment to be a subject matter expert and not giving them answers. Stuart mentioned this before. You don't have to tell people how to do things. You just need to have an idea of what you want done and then say, what do you think? And give people an opportunity to speak up. So I think trusting the team, letting them speak and giving them time to go off and pursue their own development and growth.
Stuart, what about you?
Yeah, I think empowering your team's critical. I think trusting your team. I think understanding your team's motivations and their why, not just the why of the task that you're doing, is really important so that you can leverage their strengths and creating that culture where the team sort of feed off each other and continuously learn and develop.
And is that something you went to, what did you study at university, Siobhan?
It's software engineering.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. You're in the right job then. What is next for you? What are you keen to learn more of and develop and stretch yourself?
Well, I'm still at uni, so I'm still learning a lot. But I think something I really want to do over the next couple months, a year, is really grow my network, grow who I know in the business and just outside of the business, and grow the amount of people I know. Because I just think it's such a great way, and a lot of opportunities come from just even knowing people. And so, yeah.
100%. And how do you build that network?
Well, I try to push myself to go to more networking events and go to
webinars.
Yeah, exactly. And just speak to people, even though it's like I might be a bit shy or scared. I try to push myself out of my comfort zone and just talk to them, and hopefully the conversation goes well. And then kind of try and build that relationship up afterwards. Like if I see them around the office, say hi, or sometimes grab a coffee with some people. So,
because I think that network that you build around you is equally key to your own empowerment. You never know where those side opportunities that can come, like maybe a governor position or an advisor position. You never know where that's going to come in. Speaking on a panel, a webinar, mentoring. It can come in so many different forms, isn't it? And I think this goes back to the U plan, not the super plan, the U plan. Mm-hmm. You build yours up with the ingredients that suit you, right? And I love the career cards. I keep saying that, but I'm still going to say it. I need my own pack. Royal London branded career cards, please. Thank you.
I think one of my career steps actually happened through that. So I met one of my colleagues from internal audit, and she was going on maternity leave, and she said, I actually need cover for a role. And at the time I was looking for just something different to do. And she said, it would only be a year. Would you be interested in? And we literally just met outside the front doors of the office. And I think Siobhan's right, having a network doesn't necessarily mean you go for like scheduled coffees with people at intervals. It's just having those incidental conversations around the office sometimes that can lead to things. And also it teaches you more about the business. So if you have a network of people across the organisation, they'll talk a bit about what's happening in their team. And you might think, oh, wow, that sort of gives purpose to what our team are doing, because we work in IT, we enable other colleagues to work, but we can then understand why they need to work, and it's to serve our customers, for example.
And is that that's constant learning, both internal and external. How have you managed your networks over because you're the most experienced person at this table?
Polite I'm the oldest, thank you.
No, but how have you, because you've talked about you working over in Canada, you've had different experiences, taken on different challenges, and that's what's empowered you as well over the years. But how have you managed that? Because that's a big network to build.
Yeah, I think everyone's touched on it, right? It's about owning your own sort of development goals and where you want to get to, and understanding your strengths and weaknesses and where you can lean on and leverage network. I'm very fortunate to get to work on a day-to-day basis with really great leaders across the business, all of whom are very different. So it's about understanding strengths and weaknesses of others and leveraging that to support.
And just for anyone watching out there who's thinking, you know what, I've been putting this off because of time, because of busy. What's the one thing that you would say to people watching today that go, other than say yes and work out later, you've got to make sure you look at that development, both at yourself and your teams. What's the one thing that you go, that's worked for me?
I'd say just starting. A lot of the times it's easy to put things off because you might think it'll take a really long time to do. But sometimes I just like trick myself and be like, I'll just do it for 20 minutes. And then I end up being there for an hour. So, just starting sometimes is just that push, that motivation you need to get started.
Sophie?
I think if you're struggling with where to start or what to develop, and I think sometimes that can be the barrier. You think, oh, I'll take some development time and then just have a blank page and don't know what to do with it. There are lots of free tools out there that can help you understand things like motivations or the type of worker you are. And then you can use AI to say, okay, based on this feedback from this report that I've got about myself, what are the top 3 things I should work on? So even if there's a barrier to you coming up with what your development plan is, there are tools out there that can help.
And Stuart?
Yeah, I think you owe it to yourself to empower yourself to basically drive that development journey for yourself. There are lots of great tools out there that can help you. I think curiosity and determination are really, really important. Personal and professional growth be a constant focus, and encourage it for yourself, encourage it for your teams and for your family as well.
And I think that just beautifully brings today's conversation to sort of a culmination in the fact that it all starts with you, right? It starts with saying yes. It starts with starting, actually, as Siobhan said there, but it starts with, it's ongoing. It's continuous learning, isn't it? And I always think that curiosity in every shape of our life and personal life is, maybe it's just because we're inherently nosy, I don't know, but often, there's no one on this table who won't want to help someone else or won't need someone to help them. So it starts with starting, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, the Royal London Massive. You need a team colour shirt now, I think.
Purple.
Purple is absolutely 100%. Sophie, Stuart and Siobhan, thank you for all the S's from me, Simone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So many top tips. Please join in the conversation on the LinkedIn chat here or on YouTube and ask the questions. And I'm sure our wonderful guests will jump back in if they've got anything to add as well. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Royal London for making today's webinar happen. And we look forward to seeing you next time.